The Nerdcast Empire is on the air. Welcome back to another edition of the Nerdcast News Report for Friday, June the 20th, 2025. I am Matt in the studio. Great to have you along with us. We are back with our news podcast once again. We are talking a little anime, a little pro wrestling, a little bit of almost everything this week on the Nerdcast News Report. And it should be an interesting episode because we're going to talk a little bit about what is evidently a fairly controversial storyline in professional wrestling. Also going to get some thoughts from Mike about some current series that he's checking out in the world of anime, and we'll also be talking a little bit about some more interesting times at Warner Brothers Discovery and everything going on with Adult Swim / Max / HBO Max, whatever they happen to be called this week. Joining me in the studio, as always, is Mike. Mike, how's it going?
It's going. Yeah, I honestly didn't realize that there was a big issue about the wrestling world and a major storyline for Saturday night's main event. So that'll be an interesting thing to talk about. Finally getting back into watching anime. I kind of had a little bit of a drought, but there are a few shows I've at least attempted to watch this season. Hopefully I'll be able to watch more this summer, but I can talk to it the best I can. And yeah, I haven't watched Lazarus yet, but you know, Cowboy Bebop was good. Why wouldn't Lazarus be good?
Yeah, and it, certainly there are mixed opinions about it, and the story is not as necessarily about us discussing whether the show's good or not, because neither one of us have watched it, so not really our place to say, but really more just, again, kind of ongoing issues at Warner Brothers Discovery, Turner, everything that's going on there. So we'll get into that in our final news story of the day. But let's jump into that supposedly controversial news story. And it was something that came about on Monday Night Raw, and it's something that's been rumored for a while, is that, there was some talk a couple of years ago about the fact that Goldberg was kind of upset that he didn't get the opportunity to have a farewell match in WWE. And it was, at least it seems to be fairly clear that Vince McMahon had no interest in having Goldberg have a farewell match in WWE for whatever reason. But the new regime, obviously a lot more open to that. They kind of brought him back in the crowd. They said, we'll talk later. And later kind of became this, where Goldberg confronted Gunther, who has just regained the World Championship, and basically challenged him to a match at Saturday night's main event, which will be coming up on July the 12th in Atlanta, Georgia. And, of course, you can see that on NBC, as you see on the screen, if you're watching on Twitch or on YouTube. Evidently, this upset a lot of people. Busted open. Both of the main hosts on there had very negative opinions about it. And, Bully Ray encouraging the fans to revolt, basically. You had Dave LaGreca just totally lose his mind, which he normally does on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of his shtick.
But even more so with this, just totally upset. And there's no question that Goldberg is going to be very limited in what he can do at his age, and just with the miles that has been put on his body. And it's been very clear, and I think there was even confirmation of this today in the advertising for Saturday night's main event, that Goldberg is making it clear this is his retirement match. So obviously, and hypothetically speaking, if he won, he would then relinquish the title and they would have to determine a new champion. Everybody expects him to lose this match, but I guess the question I pose is, I just don't like, and I guess the thing that's important to kind of set this up, we've talked about this before. I was never a WCW guy. Like, I enjoyed it in their heyday, but like, people who love WCW.
Sure.
From, the NWA days and all the way through, and they were on their side. So I don't have like a need necessarily to see Goldberg have this match. Like, I wasn't a Goldberg fan, but at the same time, like, I just don't get the anger that is coming out about what is almost certainly going to be 5 to 10 minutes of nonsense, followed by a few minutes in the ring, a Gunther victory.
Yeah.
Goldberg gets to hug his family, gets cheered by his home crowd, and that's the end of the story. I don't understand what's so wrong with that.
I feel like this is what they should do with every legend, so to speak. Give them that one last match, let them lose, have it in their hometown or closest proximity. I don't, maybe I don't take this seriously enough to be bothered by it. But that being said, too, is it people are mad because they think that's why Gunther beat Jey Uso, is to set this match up? Is it kind of like an extension of its, maybe they don't like the idea of Goldberg doing this anyway, but then they go, well, this wouldn't have happened if they set things up for this to happen. Like, you're not going to have Goldberg wrestle Jey Uso, so let's get the belt off of him, put it on Gunther, have this match. I don't know. I just... What's the alternative? Like, say you still had Gunther beat Jey Uso. What's the alternative for Saturday night's main event? Just throw some random challenger at him, even with a storyline, have Gunther beat them. Okay. Like, I have no problem with an occasional throwaway title match.
Yeah, I don't get it either. Now, I will say there's two groups of people who you could, if you tell me you're angry for this reason, I can kind of get behind it. Number one went away, but could have very easily been there if WWE had let R-Truth go and not hired him back.
Yeah.
And then they let Goldberg come swooping in and have this title match. I would probably be pretty upset in that scenario as well, because Ron Killings has been a loyal WWE guy and clearly doing some of his best work now that they brought him back. But if they would have let him go without having a farewell match, but let Goldberg come in, and I understand, like, their careers, money made, titles, they're not the same, but you're talking about loyalty. I think in that case, there would have been some reason to be upset.
Yeah, I could see that.
The other one is, obviously, WWE just recently had another round of releases. There were a handful of them that were older, and some of them women. And I think part of the reason that leaked out that a lot of them got let go is, hey, they're getting into their 40s. They're not really maybe over, whatever the situation may be, or they're injury prone. So I could see, like, if Dakota Kai is one of your favorite wrestlers and you're mad that she got let go because of, her getting up there in age or whatever the reason was, I could see you, again, being upset that, they're letting my favorite wrestlers go and this guy that I don't like because I'm a loyal WWE guy is coming in to get the hero's farewell. So I get that. But if you set those things aside, I don't understand what this is going to hurt. Like, if you have Goldberg beat Gunther, then we're probably going to talk about it a little more angrily on the podcast.
I could see having a bit of a problem with that.
Yeah, because there's no legitimate reason for that to happen.
No.
But this is a chance for Gunther to give him, because let's face it, there are only a handful of guys on this roster that even have a shot of giving Goldberg a reasonable final match at this point.
Yeah.
Gunther being one of them, because he has a good match with everybody. So, they're going to put it together smartly. I would expect some before the bell nonsense where Goldberg runs him into the post or hits him with a chair.
Draws blood. Now he might actually do it.
Yeah, just something to create a little doubt. And the other thing, too, that I just don't get is, like, if you haven't seen the clip, go watch the clip when he showed up on Raw. People lost their minds for that music and the pyro and the Goldberg chants. And there is just such a disconnect right now. And Jey Uso is another perfect example of it. Do I always 100% get it? No, I don't 100% get it. But I'm also not stupid.
I don't fight it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, just because I don't understand the popularity doesn't mean that I don't see the popularity.
I know why they let Jey Uso become world champion. Like, I understand that. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's not my thing, but it doesn't have to be. So much of what's on their program, and that goes for any wrestling promotion, so much of what goes on there isn't for me, and I'm okay with that.
That's the thing is, you've got 2.5 hours of Raw. Supposedly we're going back to 2 hours of SmackDown soon.
God.
Like, you've got 2 hours of NXT, an hour of Evolve. Like, there's a lot, and probably soon an hour, 2 hours of AAA.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of stuff
for you.
There's something for everybody. And if this match isn't for you, then enjoy CM Punk versus John Cena with potentially a cash-in from Seth Rollins in Saudi Arabia. Or, enjoy something else going on. Like, there's a lot out there.
What I would love is if they kind of took this match here, this Gunther Goldberg thing, and kind of spin it and take it into a different direction where you bring back more of these guys and Gunther puts them down.
Yeah.
Like, he becomes the dude that retires all the legends. You could even have him be Cena's last match on the back end of all this. Like, I think that would be a cool distinction for the guy, that he basically puts people out of their misery.
Well, and the only logical ending to that storyline is Randy Orton beats him for the title, because obviously that was Randy Orton's gimmick too,
Yeah.
the legend killer. So you have Orton come back maybe sometime next year, and you have him beat Gunther to win, get closer to the record number of championships. Like that makes a lot of sense as well. So, like I said, if you want to be mad about it, be mad about it. It's not my place to tell you not to be mad about it. I just don't understand it. It's such a wasted energy when, the argument I saw was like, well, Goldberg hasn't beaten anybody in years. Yeah, neither had John Cena.
Not only had Cena not beaten anybody in years, but he had lost way more matches consecutively than Goldberg did.
Yes, and the matches weren't good. You think about his match with Austin Theory, and
Yeah.
it was just bad. And it's just like, and most of his matches during this run, unfortunately, have been bad. Like, he's just very limited as well, but everybody
thankfully,
loves
none
him.
of them have been as bad as the WrestleMania match, so
No.
you don't really notice.
Yeah, for sure. But, everybody loves John Cena, so it's okay that he gets to have bad matches all the way out. But, if Goldberg's going to have 1 5-minute bad match on network television, not even on a pay-per-view, in his hometown, like, that's a problem.
I think we all, no matter what our vocation is, we hope for a day where we decide to stop and people celebrate. People
Yeah.
throw us a party. I think you want that. You want to be recognized for what you did in your line of work. And I just don't see a problem with doing that for Goldberg, because in that era where WCW was actually beating WWE, that's the one thing you can point to and say they created that.
And one other thing to note, we've talked about it before. During the end of the Vince McMahon era, these legends were ridiculed. They were brought in to be made fun of. They were constantly the butt end of jokes when they came in. And, the one thing this regime has gotten right, maybe more than anything, is bringing them in, putting them in the front of the crowd, getting the applause, having them in meaningful storylines where, you're treating them with respect and
They
reverence.
all feel celebrated now.
Yeah. So, like, if Goldberg getting this match means that the Dudleys get a farewell match, if it means that, other guys that were integral in WWE who haven't had that farewell match get their match, I'm totally for that. Let's have them all have a farewell match. Like you said, maybe Gunther's involved in all of them. I don't know, but let's celebrate what they've done. If they want to go out in the ring, let's bring them back and let them do that. I think there's nothing bad about that.
No, not at all.
But
speaking of which, I do have to mention, as this is kind of a tie-in, August 24th, we have the Columbus Toy and Game Show with Tito Santana.
Oh man, there's still time to bring back. And this, we should note now, is WWE's Tito Santana, not AAA's Tito Santana, because
not WWE's Tito Santana, as they're both kind of WWE's now.
Yeah. Well,
Weird.
presumably, I don't know.
I don't know what his status is.
I don't think I've seen him on AAA's TV in a while. So
that's disappointing.
Chris asking for a Gangrel farewell. Sure. Like, again, I don't think there's any harm in any of that. If those guys want to come back and do that and say goodbye, just keep Ric Flair as far away from the ring as possible. His farewell should have been.
He can still catch up to Cena.
There's still time for sure. But yeah. So again, people want to be mad about it. That's their prerogative. To me, I want to see more of this. I want to see, and again, I'm not talking about bringing these guys back for long runs. Let's bring them back, give them a farewell, let the fans cheer them out. I'm good with that. And again, my opinion on this completely changes if Goldberg wins the match, but I just cannot imagine that happening.
No.
So we'll see what happens, and we'll certainly talk about it afterward, one way or the other. A couple other news stories, I guess, if you will. The second one is just listed as Mike's latest anime viewing. So, I have done very poorly in keeping up with anime just because my schedule's been crazy. And Mike is doing much better as he mentioned in the open, as far as, getting back into anime. And so really, I didn't want this or didn't need this to be anything formal as much as just, here are some things that Mike's been watching. Just some general thoughts on it. If you're maybe looking for a show, or if you like, hey, what do you think of this show? Like, it's more of just kind of a general, synopsis of some of the things that have come across your screen since the last time we talked about anime, which has been a little while. So I'll kind of throw it over to you. Just some things you might want to talk about that's gotten your attention in the anime world.
Yeah, it's funny. I had been trying to keep up with some sort of pace of watching at least 5 new shows each season. Not really doing that at the moment. I have some catching up to do. There's really only 3 that I noticed that have current season episodes that I'm watching in any way, shape, or form. Fire Force season 3. I'm like 4 episodes into it. It's always good. I can jump into it at any time. A little disappointed with the music this time around because the first 2 seasons had such great opens and endings, but yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes and how it all culminates, and if since I don't read the manga or anything, I'm curious how it all ties into Soul Eater ultimately. But yeah, I'll definitely get through that season before too long. Another one that I've been very weak about keeping up with is Windbreaker season 2. It's another show that's it's fine. It's not on Fire Force's level, but it's still an enjoyable show. I always compare it to Tokyo Revengers, only the main character isn't pathetic. That being said, the story also isn't as interesting as Tokyo Revengers either, so you got that. It's kind of a give and take there. The show that kind of caught me off guard, though, one that I didn't watch season 1 initially, it wasn't until some people in my Japanese class were talking about how good it was that I did jump into it, and now I'm currently on episode 41, which is in season 2, which is airing right now, and that's the Apothecary Diaries. Didn't really appeal to me just looking at it. I liked some of the music in it, but not enough to get me to pull it up on Crunchyroll and start episode 1. But once I finally did, I blew through it pretty quickly. Now I'm only a couple episodes behind on the dub. The characters are amazing. It being kind of a period piece in like ancient China, I wasn't sure if that would be interesting to me, but it turned out it is really. They keep teasing some major reveal as to why the one character's been hiding his identity, and I'm not sure how that all is going to play out and culminate, but I'm excited about that, and definitely highly recommended as far as current shows.
Nice. I mean, I've heard good things about all 3 of those shows, and certainly Apothecary Diaries is one that I had on my list. Just, again, I get sucked into a lot of shows because of the music, and I thought the music for the first season, that was really good. So it was one I definitely wanted to check out, and my backlog is obviously continuing to build as I've been very bad about watching anime, but my hope is that this summer I'll be able to get caught up on a few more shows, and maybe I need to start downloading them to take on airplanes with me, because that could be an
idea.
If I'm going to continue to travel, that's a legitimate possibility. But yeah, a lot of really good stuff out there. It is interesting you mentioned the music, because I know that's something you've talked about off air, about the trend that some of these shows that are having 2nd and 3rd seasons, the sequel themes, just for whatever reason, they're not bad by any stretch, but they just maybe don't live up to the initial theme songs of the shows, which is an interesting trend.
Yeah, and I don't know if that speaks to just popular music trends in Japan compared to a few years back even. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but yeah, Fire Force had some outstanding music. Apothecary Diaries did too. Season 2, the first open, grew on me, but the second one so far, which I've just started getting into the episodes that use it's Mrs. Green Apple, but like that song just doesn't really compare to a lot of their other work to me. Not nearly as good as like the Fire Force song even, but yeah, it's a shame, and I feel like there are also a lot of opens now that sound like the new Kenshin opens. Windbreaker's a show like that, and I think they're similar artists, if not the same artists, that do some of those songs, but like it's not the same to me. I don't know. Going through the spring music to finally finish my video, and it's just like there aren't as many just obvious 10 out of 10 great songs, and I don't know if we're just in a slump right now or what.
And you may be onto something too, that just some of the trends in anime theme songs could be changing, just like trends in music change. Maybe it's just a modern style that, Creepy Nuts clearly found something that spoke to people that didn't really speak to me in any good way. But at the same time, like, those songs were huge.
Yeah.
Now there have still been some really big opens that obviously have done well. I know, Yoasobi has really been, kind of tearing it up as far as the stuff they've been doing. So yeah, maybe it's just a temporary blip on the radar that eventually that'll come back up the mountain, or they're waiting for some other big shows to come out to bring out the heavy guns again. But it is an interesting trend.
Yeah, exactly. And I haven't even looked to see what is coming this summer, but I get the feeling there's going to be some big shows.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff. And we'll, maybe on a future episode, we'll take a look at some of the summer titles coming up and just kind of give a brief preview on what we might be interested in.
It's probably going to be a big season, I think, just looking at what's on here.
I mean, that's the thing, is there really are very few down seasons anymore in anime. It is, if you go back, it used to be really spring, fall, and then the summer, winter were either continuing shows or, stuff that was kind of like the mid-season replacements that you have over here. Like now it really is like one season after another is big shows.
I mean, we're only a couple weeks away from the start of summer, but
yeah,
a couple of the shows, My Dress Up Darling Season 2, Dandadan Season 2, Kaiju Number 8 Season 2, Call the Night Season 2, Shield Hero Season 4, Rascal Does Not Dream of Santa Claus, Sakamoto Days Part 2, Grand Blue Season 2. Gotta catch that show before.
Gotta watch Season
starts.
1, yeah.
Part 2 of Dr. Stone's Science Future. Man. Rent a Girlfriend Season 4. There you go.
God.
Man. That is just the top of the list. I mean, there are a lot of shows that I probably also won't watch, but they're being made, so
somebody will watch them.
Yeah, but just those alone, I mean, that was already some real heavy hitters.
I saw that they brought back the same band for the Grand Blue Open that did the original, which they deem
Nice.
them like a reggae band, which is kind of interesting. I guess it does have like a reggae.
I mean, it feels like a travel commercial telling you to go to Sandals, Jamaica.
Yes.
Hell Teacher Nube.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, a lot of really great stuff, and we'll try to break that down a little further for a future episode. And talk a little bit more about anime.
Turkey, Time to Strike.
That the bowling anime. I know people are excited about that actually. So
why
not? Definitely worth checking out. But yeah, a lot of good stuff. So we'll definitely go through the list and give you a preview of that coming up maybe in the coming weeks. So real quick before we get to our final, just quick story. A reminder: check out our website nerdcastempire.com. A reminder: we'll be back with you Sunday night, 7 o'clock Eastern, for another episode of Music of Hard Rock Empire. It is the music of May the 30th coming up this week, and thumbs up, thumbs in the middle, thumbs down.
Yeah,
maybe not as strong a week as we've had the last couple weeks.
Yeah, it doesn't quite compare to last week yet, but there should still be enough.
So you'll have to tune in to find out. So join us 7 o'clock Eastern time Sunday night for the Hard Rock Empire. We will not be back with you Monday night. By this time on Monday, I will, if all goes correctly, be on my way to Atlantic City for a one-day visit to New Jersey. But we should be back with you next Friday night for another episode of the Nerdcast News Report, 7 o'clock Eastern time. And maybe we will have a chance to talk a little bit about the upcoming anime season, which will be real close by the time we get to next Friday night. So join us then. And again, join us on Sunday for the Hard Rock Empire. Should be some good stuff coming up at 7 o'clock Eastern. One other quick story. And again, this is another one of those shows that, neither one of us have seen. We mentioned in the open, Lazarus. Obviously, it's the spiritual successor, if you will, of Cowboy Bebop. At least that was the goal of the creation of the show. I think reviews are mixed as to whether it, succeeded or failed in creating that vibe, whether it was, a show that was maybe a little bit too full of itself, or a show that, tried to feel important but didn't really tell a good story. There's lots of opinions out there. Some people obviously really liked it. A lot of reviews are good. Kind of felt like the show got better in the second half. But the story is not really about the review of the show, because we've not seen it. It's about how it was nearly canceled. And I think when you see this story, it was talking about how the show was originally going to be for Max, which is now HBO Max again. And David Zaslav, who has been in the news a lot in media over the last year, basically included it in the cancellations among several other programs that were coming to Max. And Adult Swim basically scooped it up and saved it from cancellation. So really, it's again, we can't really speak about whether the show's any good or not, but it's another case where there's a lot going on, at Warner Brothers Discovery. Obviously, there's a split coming up of the company. You know, TNT has recently lost the NBA after Zaslav made comments about them not needing the NBA, and the NBA is like, fine, we'll go somewhere else. So it goes back to NBC and Amazon. It's an interesting time in that company, and it feels like, it may be a microcosm for kind of the whole media world in the West as it's going with streaming and fractured rights and things like that. We've talked about it on the anime side. To watch all the shows you listed a moment ago, you're probably going to need at least 4, maybe 5 streaming services to cover all of those shows. It's an interesting time, and I pulled this story really as much to kind of talk more about that necessarily than the Lazarus, the show itself.
Yeah, I feel like I hear a lot of news about David Zaslav, and I have for the past few years, just following people who follow, DC or Cartoon Network, animation in general, entertainment, just so many things got canceled under his watch. Some probably were a good thing because they were going to lose even more money had they not been canceled. But yeah, I just, and I would love to know the financials behind Lazarus. Like, is it profitable? Has it done anything to prove that it's justified, or to justify its existence? Essentially, to me, it kind of seems like a home run. I mean, Cowboy Bebop was super popular. Like, if you can get Watanabe to just create another Cowboy Bebop, how can you go wrong? Like, that seems like an easy thing to not cancel.
And without giving, I don't know, it's unreasonable to talk about Cowboy Bebop spoilers 30 years after the anime came out. I feel like at this point you haven't watched it, but let's just say, like, if you create this really groundbreaking anime, maybe don't kill off any of your characters.
I was going to say, I bet the main character Lazarus survives at the end.
I would imagine so, because because the easiest way to make more Cowboy Bebop is to make more Cowboy Bebop, but he kind of wrote himself into a hole there unless you do like a retelling.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm surprised they haven't.
Yeah, I mean, you could always do the retelling route. You could do the kind of like I think they did with the movie, where it's just kind of embedded within the series at some point. I think they did the same with the Trigun movie originally, where it's like, yeah, it just happens somewhere along the way. The characters are there. It's cool. You don't make a live action version. Clearly, that's not the right choice.
No, but it feels like that was a different era in anime too. Obviously, you had long-running shows at the time, your Dragon Balls, your whatever it may be. But it feels like a lot of those shows that were really good in that era were kind of meant to be contained within 26, 52, episodes. Like, it wasn't really, the goal was not to make a 500 episode or 1,000 episode show. It was like, here's our story. It's going to take X number of episodes to tell it. When we're done, we're done. That's the end. Like, I think because of that, you had shows where it's like, well, we're going to kill the main character because that's the end of the story. Like,
nothing else needs to happen.
Nothing else needs to happen. And, I think in hindsight, I'd wonder if he regrets that. And not just him, there were other shows of that era that also did that. One I can think of in particular that I won't mention the name of killed the 2 main characters at the end of the series. Very tragic. Was a really good show. And it's like, I don't know if there needed to be more of that, though. I feel like they told their story and they got out.
But it makes you wonder, too, because I remember fairly early on in my Japanese class bringing up Cowboy Bebop, and the teacher talked about how, like, it wasn't that big of a deal in Japan.
Yeah.
Like, it was much more popular in the West, and maybe you don't think about killing off the main character if you don't think that you're going to have some sort of giant empire built on the back of it. I don't know. And the show you're talking about, it certainly wasn't like Ava popular.
No.
Or, I'm sure it did all right, but even when it was brought over here, it wasn't like, oh, this is going to be the biggest show ever. Like,
yeah. So, it's interesting, the decisions that go into that. And at some point I probably will get around to Lazarus. Maybe. I mean, I have so many shows on my backlog just to see what the hype is about.
Yeah,
but
so it's sitting at a 7.31 on my anime list right now, which isn't bad. It's respectable.
that's solid.
The reviews aren't necessarily as friendly, so I think people who think it's okay are less likely to leave reviews on it. You have 11 recommends, 5 mixed feelings, and 16 not recommended. I pulled just a couple excerpts from the various reviews. Someone that recommended it said, Lazarus, the most overhated anime of recent times. This anime has a solid foundation of story. The core idea is actually interesting enough to make you keep watching this. Sure, it's not the best story or world building out there. After all, it's an original anime, but for being an original title, it has all the good things you could expect. So,
well, it's interesting because that is literally the headline of a CBR article about it. But there's also another one that hates on it too. So like,
that's funny.
Which in the comments of that one is basically people fighting over loving it and hating it. So it definitely got some visceral reactions one way or the other.
If we go kind of the middle of the ground to the mixed feelings, you get statements like, if you're coming home tired from work or school and just want to watch something that doesn't demand much attention, Lazarus might be the right pick for you. Overall, it's the kind of show that's fine to have on in the background during dinner, but if you're looking for something with depth or strong narrative hooks, you might walk away disappointed.
All right. Fair enough.
And finally, from the not recommended, all I have here is absolutely boring series where nothing happens, nothing matters, and every episode wastes 23 minutes of your limited time on Earth. So hopefully they didn't watch very many episodes. I'd hate to think that they wasted a substantial amount of their time here on Earth.
The bad thing is that's the person that watched every episode and then wrote that
multiple times just to make sure they really wasted their time.
But yeah, I mean, again, neither one of us has seen it, so we really can't speak to it. Check it out yourself. Let us know. Of course, it's a good time to remember to post the link to the Discord. You can tell us what you think of Lazarus if you have watched it. So join our Discord. It is free. And, of course, you can let us know, what you think of that show, maybe other anime recommendations. We certainly love to hear what everybody's thoughts are on shows that are out there. Obviously, Chris mentioned in the chat starting Jujutsu Kaisen, so that's
good show.
Mike was a fan of that show, is a fan of that show. So
need to watch season 2 still, but, enjoying it.
So definitely let us know. Join the Discord. Tell us your opinions. Tell us topics you want us to talk about, both on this podcast and the Hard Rock Empire, and we will certainly tackle those during the episode. Means it is time to get to the finish, which means it's time for the Empire Express. Are you ready to go?
Let's go.
Sony has confirmed that Solo Leveling is now the most watched anime TV series on Crunchyroll. Does this surprise you?
A little, yeah, but also not at the same time. I've enjoyed the show a lot. It's not one I'd assume would break viewing records, but maybe it's kind of the equivalent of what Dragon Ball Z was to the Xennial generation. While the shows themselves aren't necessarily similar, it is action, it's a power fantasy, and maybe to a different generation, it kind of scratches that same itch. Evangelion will be celebrating the 30th anniversary of the first episode airing with an exhibition at the Tokyo City View later this year. Is it hard to believe it's been 30 years or that it's only been 30 years?
I wrote that, and I still don't know the answer to that question. I sometimes it feels like Evangelion has been around forever, and then sometimes it still feels like it hasn't been that long ago. It's a groundbreaking series that everybody should watch once. I don't care when you come into anime. Don't read anything about it. Just watch it. And my first thought when I read this story is that somewhere the remnants of ADV is about to release another collector's edition of Evangelion because, man, they made some money off of that series. But it's definitely worth a watch. I'm not going to sit here and say it's the greatest show of all time. It could be one of the most important shows of all time just for the influence and everything. So definitely check it out.
It's not one you watch in the background while you're eating dinner.
No, absolutely not.
You might want to pay attention.
That's one you're going to have to take your notebook out and take some notes probably to keep up with that one. Crunchyroll's announced that the Classroom of the Elite mobile game is coming to the Crunchyroll Game Vault. Is this a good idea or the latest cash grab from Crunchyroll?
Maybe both. I guess it doesn't hurt to branch out. I've gotten emails and I've been somewhat aware of this Game Vault existing for a while now, but never looked into it. Checking into it, though, you can play Shin-Chan, Shiro in the Coal Town, Corpse Party. There's a Steins Gate game, among others. Maybe it's worth checking out. I don't know. Yeah, beats me. In some pro wrestling news, it sounds like Liv Morgan will need surgery to repair a separated shoulder, which could sideline her for up to 6 months. She's going to be tough to replace, isn't she?
Yeah, she's really kind of the main character of Monday Night Raw. I think there was one episode recently where she was had 4 different segments in the show, and she is going to be tough to replace. And it also goes to remind you of how just simple moves in professional wrestling can end up with devastating injuries. I think sometimes you look at the crazy spots and you think, well, how did they not break their neck or whatever? But then it's just something simple and you separate your shoulder. And, she's been great. I think she's honestly elevated herself to a top tier performer.
Yeah.
And, the obvious storyline is that Roxanne Perez is going to come in and take Dom away from her. And then she's going to come back as a babyface in 6 months. But certainly wish her the best. Quick healing. Hopefully everything goes well with the surgery and she can get back on television sooner rather than later. Finally, if you've been waiting for the Pokemon crossover with Hershey's Kisses, wait no longer. You can pick up limited edition chocolates for the original 151 Kanto region Pokemon on the wrapper. Interested in catching them all?
Why not? Why not? Strangely enough, when I searched these, I found a listing for a 10-ounce bag at Walmart for $5.50. My search also took me to an eBay listing where someone was selling that same 10-ounce bag for $30. So, yeah, that's Pokemon for you.
Yeah, that's crazy. I just can't imagine that not being melted when you got it. Just be a bunch of wrappers with melted chocolate in a big pile.
I kept searching on eBay, and Chris had mentioned the Pop-Tarts, and you can buy refrigerator magnets that are just like the box of Pop-Tart, like the front of the box of Pop-Tarts that they had when Pokemon was doing the crossover with them. So maybe you're not buying it for the candy from eBay. You're just buying it for the bag. I don't know.
You know what? I mean, it's not the craziest thing probably people have bought Pokemon related from eBay or from the store. So
we all did. Those of us who have been into Pokemon, I remember in the late 90s eating Burger King more than any human should because they had a tie-in thing. But I was late teens at that point in time. People, man, people.
Yeah. Catch them all, though. You can, like Mike said, you can buy the Hershey's Kisses online or probably catch them in the store as well. So get them before they're gone because I'm sure they're a limited time and they'll be out of stores here before too long. We are out of time for this episode of the Nerdcast News Report. Thanks again for joining us. We'll be back again Sunday night with another episode of the Hard Rock Empire, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. The music of May the 30th is on tap. No podcast Monday night. We'll be back with you hopefully next Friday night, 7 o'clock Eastern, for another episode of the Nerdcast News Report. Big thanks to Chris for joining us in the chat. Big thanks to Mike for joining me in the studio as always. And a big thanks to Stove Lake Media for their continued support of our podcast. And a big thanks to you for listening whenever and wherever you are listening. We'll be back with you Sunday night for another episode of the Hard Rock Empire. Until then, don't forget to join the Empire, the Nerdcast Empire.